Life is not a simple path without obstacles. No matter who you are, at some point, you will be challenged. Some days will feel like unexpected storms, shaking your confidence and testing your endurance. Others will be quiet, but full of uncertainty and fear. It is in these moments that many get lost, surrender to anxiety, and forget that inside them lies an unbreakable strength. But you're not here by chance. You feel there's a better way to face difficulties, a stronger, wiser way. The Stoics knew that challenges aren't enemies, but teachers. Every obstacle, every pain, every loss carries a lesson that can transform us. The problem is that most people resist, wishing life were easy, that things always went as planned. But reality doesn't bend to our wishes. Suffering arrives, and the only real choice we have is how we will face it. Those who fight against pain suffer twice. Those who face it with wisdom grow stronger. If today you feel overwhelmed, if the challenges seem unbearable, know that you're not alone. Many have gone through what you are facing now. Many have fallen, but they've also risen again. And you can too. You just need to learn to see challenges like a Stoic. There are 9 lessons that can change how you approach tough times. Lessons that don't come from empty words, but from centuries of wisdom proven through practice. But before we continue, I want you to do something important. Leave a like so this message can reach more people who need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any content. And if you can, share this video with someone who is going through tough times. In the comments, write today's phrase, "I will overcome the hard days." Declare this to yourself. Write it, reaffirm it, claim this truth now. Take a deep breath, prepare your mind, and listen carefully, because these 9 Stoic lessons will change the way you face your challenges. Pain is not the end, it's the beginning. The first thing you need to understand about pain is that it is not your enemy. You may hate it, fear it, wish you never felt it again, but none of that will stop it from coming. Pain is a part of life, just like night is a part of day. Running from it is running from life itself. And the truth that few are willing to face is this: the more you try to avoid it, the weaker you become. Marcus Aurelius, one of Rome's greatest emperors and a wise Stoic, said, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Think about that for a moment. What seems like an obstacle may actually be exactly what you need to grow. Pain is not here to destroy you, it's here to transform you. Understand this. Pain is a tough but fair teacher. It teaches what comfort could never teach. When everything is going well, when life is easy, we become careless, complacent. But when pain arrives, when suffering knocks on the door, we are forced to look within, to assess our strengths, our weaknesses, to understand what truly matters. It's in the fire of adversity that true character is forged. Think of a warrior training for battle. He doesn't grow stronger when he's resting, but when he's bleeding on the training field. When his muscles burn and his body wants to quit, every blow he takes is not a sign of defeat, but of learning. If he stopped at the first sign of pain, he would never be ready for war. Now ask yourself, what is your battle? What pain are you facing right now? And more importantly, how do you see it? If you view pain as punishment, as something unfairly imposed on you, then you become a victim of it. But if you see it as a test, as an opportunity to grow, then you become stronger. There's a big difference between someone who complains about what they're going through and someone who uses it as fuel to become stronger. The pain of betrayal can teach you to choose who to trust better. The pain of failure can teach you to be more strategic. The pain of loneliness can teach you to be enough for yourself. The pain of loss can teach you to appreciate the present more. Every wound has a hidden lesson, but only the wise know how to seek it. And here's something few realize. Pain always brings 2 doors. One leads to destruction, despair, and bitterness. The other leads to wisdom, growth, and inner strength. Which one will you choose to walk through? Most people spend their energy trying to avoid any kind of suffering. They avoid risks because they're afraid of failing, avoid feelings because they're afraid of getting hurt, avoid change because they fear the unknown. But the price of this escape is that they never develop true strength. The Stoic doesn't run from pain. They face it. They understand that every challenge has a purpose. They don't ask, "Why did this happen to me?" but rather, "How can I use this to become better?" If you're going through tough times right now, know that this moment is not the end of your story. In fact, it might be the beginning of a new version of you, a stronger, wiser version, more ready for whatever comes your way. It all depends on how you choose to see this pain. So stop, breathe, Think, what is this pain trying to teach you? Because believe me, there's something there. What blocks the path becomes the path. The only question left is, will you resist and get lost in the suffering, or will you learn and become unbreakable? The choice is yours. 2. Control is in your hands. The rest is just wind. Human suffering has a deep root, the desperate attempt to control what can't be controlled. How many times have you found yourself frustrated because someone didn't act the way you expected? How many sleepless nights were caused by worrying about the future, about situations that haven't even happened yet and might never happen? This is the big mistake many people make, spending energy fighting against the uncontrollable while ignoring what they can truly change. Throughout history, wise people have realized there's a clear divide between what is in our control and what isn't. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, taught that we should focus only on what we can control. Everything else is like the wind. No matter how hard you try to hold it, it slips through your fingers. Think of a sailor out at sea. He doesn't control the waves. He can't change the strength of the wind or decide if there will be a storm or calm weather. But he controls the rudder, adjusts the sails, changes direction, and prepares for whatever comes. The final destination may not be in his hands, but his ability to navigate is. In life, you are that sailor. The problem is many people spend time complaining about the storm, instead of learning how to sail. Relationships are a clear example of this. You can't force someone to like you, to be loyal, or act the way you want, but you can choose how to react. How that person behaves can decide if you'll hold on to them, even if it causes pain, or if you'll move on. You can choose between holding grudges or learning from the experience. Your peace should not depend on others because others are like the wind. Fear of the future also haunts many people. They want guarantees. They want to be sure everything will turn out right. They want to avoid any possibility of failure. But the truth is, tomorrow has never been under our control. We can plan, prepare, and act in the best way possible, but we can never have full control over the outcomes. What really matters isn't whether things will happen as we expect, but how we deal with what happens. Some people spend years of their lives stuck in the past, reliving mistakes, mourning regrets. But what has already passed is just as out of our control as the time that hasn't come yet. The past can't be changed, but it can be seen in a new light. A mistake can become a lesson, a loss can become a fresh start, and pain can turn into strength. But all of this depends on where you put your attention, on what has already been, or on what you can still do. What happens around you is often unpredictable, uncertain, and random. You may lose a job, be betrayed by someone you trusted, or face challenges you never imagined. But between what happens and how you react, there's a space, and that space belongs to you. What you choose to do with it determines what comes next. Wasting energy on what slips through your hands is futile. Wanting the world to work according to your wishes is childish. Wisdom begins when you accept this reality and start focusing your energy on what you can truly change. The rest is just wind. So ask yourself, where have you been placing your energy? Are you trying to hold on to what was never in your control? Or are you strengthening what you can truly change? The choice is always in your hands. 3. Suffering twice is your choice. Pain happens when something hits us, but suffering, that's often something we create. There's a big difference between feeling the pain of the moment and carrying it as a weight for days, months, or even years. The first impact may be inevitable, but everything that comes after is a choice. It's not the facts that destroy us, but the way we insist on reliving them. An offense said by someone lasts seconds, but how many times do you replay it in your mind? A betrayal might happen in a day, but how many nights did you lose thinking about it? The same happens with fear. The threat may never even materialize, but it suffocates you before it even becomes real. This is suffering twice, or even more. What hurts is what has already happened. What destroys is the attachment to that pain. The human mind has the terrible habit of feeding wounds that should already be healed, instead of letting the experiences move forward. Many people become prisoners of themselves. They keep mentally repeating the same scenes, feel the same distress, force the same suffering, and every repetition is like another strike to a wound that could have healed. Stoicism teaches that we have control over our reactions, but not over external events. If something painful happened, the initial impact may be out of our control, but what comes after is in our hands. Continuing to fuel suffering is like holding on to a hot coal, waiting for someone else to get burned. The only person harmed is you. Some people believe that reliving the past is a way of seeking justice for themselves. They think that by forgetting or moving on from something, they're allowing the mistake to be accepted. But the truth is, the past doesn't change with resentment, nor is the future built on accumulated pain. Holding on to distress doesn't fix what happened. It only stops you from moving forward. Imagine carrying a backpack. Each time you choose to relive a painful moment, a new weight is added. Over time, this backpack gets so heavy that everything feels harder. Walking, breathing, living. What many don't realize is that letting go of this weight doesn't mean weakness, nor does it mean ignoring what happened. It simply means you've chosen to free yourself from unnecessary suffering. Someone might ask, but how do I stop suffering twice? The answer lies in awareness. Every time a painful thought arises, ask yourself, has this already passed? Is there anything I can do to change this? If the answer is no, then there's no reason to stay tied to it. Life is already hard enough without you becoming the tormentor of your own mind. Real suffering is challenging enough on its own. There's no need to amplify it with thoughts that only relive wounds. Free yourself from the habit of choosing suffering. Accept the pain when it comes, but don't invite it to stay. Let it pass like the wind. Feel it, learn from it, and move on. The past can't be changed, but your present is still in your hands, and that's where your strength should lie. Now back to lesson 4. You are shaped by what you endure, not by what you avoid. Most people seek comfort. They want a life without struggles, without pain, without challenges. But what they don't realize is that this desire weakens them. Running from discomfort doesn't make anyone stronger. On the contrary, it feeds fragility. Those who have never faced resistance, those who have never felt the weight of adversity, break easily at the slightest sign of difficulty. Nature teaches this clearly. Look at a tree that grows protected from the wind and storms. Its roots are shallow, its branches are fragile. But the one that, amidst strong winds, withstands storms and learns to bend without breaking, that one becomes sturdy. Its roots deepen and its structure strengthens. The same happens with you. Your strength doesn't come from easy days, but from what you've faced and overcome. The great warriors of history weren't shaped by peace. They became unshakable because they endured hardships that would have destroyed most. A soldier who has never been to battle doesn't know if they can trust their own courage. A wise person who has never suffered cannot guide those who are suffering. True experience, genuine wisdom, and real strength are only born from facing adversity. Difficulties are not signs that something is wrong. They are signs that you're being molded. The pain you feel today may be the foundation of your resilience tomorrow, but only if you approach it with the right mindset. Many see suffering as a punishment, as something to avoid at all costs. The Stoics, on the other hand, saw suffering as a teacher. Every obstacle that arises before you brings a hidden opportunity. It doesn't matter what the difficulty is, a loss, a failure, a fear, a betrayal. All of this has the power to strengthen you, but only if you face it, instead of running away. Many people want the reward without the effort. They want strength without resistance. They want victory without the fight. That doesn't exist. If you want a strong mind, you need to withstand pressure. If you want to become someone who doesn't break easily, you need to expose yourself to what you fear. The Stoic philosopher Seneca said, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests the brave." And he was right. What you face today may be forging the strong version of yourself, but only if you don't try to escape the process. Often, the initial resistance to pain is natural. No one likes to suffer. But the important thing isn't whether you like it or not, it's understanding why. Those who see suffering as a lesson, not as a punishment, become much stronger than those who spend their lives trying to avoid it. There's a choice to be made. You can live running from difficulties, seeking the easiest path, avoiding any situation that requires effort. But by doing that, you're becoming someone weak, someone who crumbles at the first real obstacle. Or you can choose to see challenges as tests, as steps that lead you to a higher level of strength and understanding. In the end, you will be defined by what you endured, not by what you avoided. When you look back, you'll see that the moments that taught you the most were the ones that seemed unbearable at the time. It's these moments that build your resilience, your discipline, your wisdom. Stop wishing for a life without struggles. Instead, wish to be strong enough to face them. Because true greatness doesn't lie in running from pain, but in becoming someone who can endure it and come out even stronger on the other side. 5. Suffering doesn't define your actions. No one goes through life without pain. But there's a key difference between those who rise and move forward and those who get stuck in suffering. The difference lies in attitude. What happens to you doesn't define who you are. What you do with it does. Some people carry the marks of difficulties as an eternal burden, as a label that can never be removed. These people identify so much with their pain that they become prisoners of it. They see themselves only as victims of failures or injustices, and by doing so, prevent themselves from seeing any other path. Others, however, look at their pain and turn it into a turning point. They don't ignore what they've been through. They don't pretend there was no suffering, but they refuse to let it become the center of their lives. They understand that the past is part of the journey, but it doesn't need to decide the future. The human mind has a dangerous habit of replaying stories of pain. With each memory, we relive the emotions as if we were going through everything again. But does this help us? Does reliving past pains improve the present? Most of the time, it just pulls us deeper. The Stoics taught that we shouldn't define ourselves by external events, but by how we respond to them. Epictetus said that what happens to us doesn't matter, but how we choose to react does. You can go through the toughest time of your life and still come out of it stronger, but that requires a choice. If you let pain define you, you will always be carrying a burden. If you decide that you are bigger than the suffering, you will begin to see opportunities where you once saw only walls. This is what separates the resilient from those who sink into self-pity. Often, the problem isn't what happened to us, but the story we tell ourselves about it. If you believe you're defeated, your mind will search to confirm that belief. But if you decide that each challenge was a test that strengthened you, your outlook on life changes completely. The point isn't to ignore the pain or pretend it never existed. The point is to choose not to give it more power than it deserves. You can remember what happened without letting it control your decisions. You can acknowledge the impact of a tough moment without allowing it to define your entire journey. What's past can't be changed, but what you do now is still in your hands. Each new day is an opportunity to rewrite your own story. Do you want to be defined by the wounds you suffered or by the strength you found to keep going? In the end, it's your actions that will show who you really are, not what you suffered, not the struggles you faced, but what you did with all of it. Your choice is simple. Stay stuck in the past or create something new from it. The decision will always be yours. 6. Time doesn't care, and neither should you. The hands on the clock keep moving, no matter what happens. Time doesn't adjust to your desires. It doesn't slow down for you to recover, nor does it speed up so your wishes come true faster. It follows its own path, indifferent to human worries. And while that may seem harsh, there's a powerful lesson here. If time doesn't care, why should you waste so much time worrying about things you can't change? Many live as if they could bargain with the passing days. They hold on to grudges, store up resentments, and relive disappointments as if by doing so, they could change the past or ask the future for new challenges. But time doesn't respond to complaints. It simply moves forward. And those who don't learn to move with it end up becoming prisoners of what no longer exists. Accepting the passage of time is understanding that not everything needs an immediate response. Some pains can only be healed with time, and some doubts can only be solved by it. Resisting this is fighting against something far beyond your control. Don't waste energy trying to change the flow of time. It adjusts your mind to move along with it. The seasons change without asking your permission. Yesterday can no longer be altered, and tomorrow hasn't arrived yet. So, what's the point of clinging to things beyond your control? You can spend years regretting a mistake, but that won't change your story. You can suffer for what you lost, but it won't bring anything back. Or you can simply accept that life goes on and you must do the same. Watching time pass can be frightening for some. There are those who see the passing years as a threat, a reminder of what they didn't do or what they fear losing. But what if instead of fearing the passing of time, you learn to use it in your favor? What if, instead of clinging to the past or worrying about the future, you chose to live fully in the present? Anxiety comes from trying to control what hasn't happened yet. Sadness often arises from insisting on reliving what's already passed. But the present is the only moment where you can actually act. The past is gone, and the future is just a possibility. The present, however, is here, and it's in it that your choices have power. The rush to make certain things happen quickly is also a form of waste. There's a right time for everything. Some answers only appear when you're ready to understand them. Some battles can only be won when you've strengthened your mind to face them. Impatience only fuels unnecessary frustration. Whatever moment you're living through now, it too shall pass. What seems unbearable today can, in no time, become a distant memory. What seems like an impossible obstacle today can, over time, reveal itself as just a small step in your journey. The secret is understanding that everything changes, and resisting that only prolongs suffering. So ask yourself, how much time have you already wasted worrying about what you can't change? How much of your energy has been spent trying to control the uncontrollable? Time follows its path, and the only choice you have is how to use it. You can spend it sinking into regret, or you can use it to build a stronger version of yourself. In the end, time doesn't care about your troubles or desires. It just moves forward, and perhaps the greatest freedom you can achieve is learning to move with it. You have the power to rewrite any story. Reality is a fact, but how you view that reality is a choice. Two people can go through the same situation and come out with completely different perceptions. For one, it was a tragedy. For the other, it was a lesson. What changes is the interpretation. How you choose to tell your own story determines whether you will be a victim of circumstances or someone who grows stronger with each experience. Not everything that happens is within your control, but the meaning you give to each experience is yours. Someone may hurt you, but only you decide whether that wound becomes a scar or a push to grow. A failure may seem like the end to some, but to others, it's just the beginning of a new path. Those who understand that external events are neutral know that it's the mind that colors them with pain or opportunity. The human mind tends to reinforce negative stories. When something bad happens, we mentally replay it, dwell on the same issue, and hold on to grudges. But we rarely ask ourselves, what if I looked at this differently? The power to rewrite our own narrative is in our hands, but few use this tool. Some people spend years stuck in the past because they believe they were defined by a specific moment. They cling to the pain as if it were their identity. I'm this way because I went through that. But that's only one version of the story. Nothing is stopping you from building a new one. What happened to you can be a full stop, or just a chapter that led to something bigger. Changing how you see your experiences doesn't mean ignoring reality. It doesn't mean pretending something bad didn't happen. It simply means choosing a perspective that strengthens you instead of weakening you. Imagine a warrior who lost a battle. He could see himself as defeated or as someone who learned to fight better. Both versions are true, but only one will take him forward. Reinterpreting your own story is an exercise in power. Life already brings enough challenges. There's no need to carry extra weight by insisting on seeing everything from the worst angle. When you decide to change the meaning of something, you transform not just your past, but also your future. If a mistake was a failure, you may feel guilty, but if it was a lesson, you can feel growth. If a loss was an injustice, you might get angry, but if it was a cycle that closed, you might find peace. Often it's the story itself that prevents change. If you convince yourself that you've always been this way, that you've always suffered, that you've always been unlucky, then you'll keep acting as if that's the only truth possible. But what if you decided to tell a different story? What if instead of being someone who lost, you were someone who survived? What if, instead of someone who was defeated, you were someone who rebuilt themselves? The power to give new meaning to things lies within you. What happened can't be erased, but the way you see yourself can change at any moment. Difficult experiences are inevitable, but how you carry them decides whether they will be a weight that holds you back or a push that lifts you. In the end, your story is still being written. You can keep reliving the same chapters, or you can choose to start a new page. The past is gone, but the future is still yours. What story do you want to tell from now on? Letting go isn't losing, it's freeing yourself. Holding on to what should have already gone is like holding onto a rope while it cuts into your skin. The more you insist, the more you hurt yourself. But paradoxically, letting go of this rope feels scary. Why? Because detachment is often confused with loss. People think that letting something go means giving up, means failing, means losing. But in reality, detachment isn't about losing. It's about gaining freedom. Life is a continuous flow of change. Nothing stays the same. Friends drift away, opportunities come and go, moments pass. Resisting this flow only causes suffering. How many times have you held on to something just out of fear of what would come next? How many times have you insisted on a situation that no longer made sense, simply because you didn't want to face the emptiness that would come with letting it go? This is the paradox of attachment. It promises security, but in reality, it traps you. The Stoics taught that true peace comes from accepting what's beyond our control. Epictetus said that we shouldn't hold on to what is temporary, because everything life gives us, life can take away, and that shouldn't make us despair, but rather understand. It doesn't mean we should live without feelings or stop valuing people and experiences, but rather that we should learn to accept when something has already played its part in our story. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning, forgetting, or being indifferent. It simply means understanding that there are moments when insisting is wasting energy, that there are bonds, no matter how strong they were, that need to be undone so new paths can be followed, that there are pains that only heal when we stop touching them all the time. Excessive attachment comes from fear of being alone, fear of not finding something better, fear that the past was the best moment and that the future will never bring anything as good. But does it make sense to live looking backward, clinging to what has already passed, while life moves forward? What you lose by letting go of something that no longer belongs in your journey may be insignificant compared to what you gain by freeing yourself. People who struggle to let go live trapped in cycles of pain. They replay relationships that are long over, hold on to old hurts, and cling to expectations that no longer make sense. It's like carrying an unnecessary load and still wondering why the journey is so tough. But what would happen if, for a moment, you decided to drop that weight? Nothing lasts forever. That's a truth many fear, but it can also be liberating. If everything changes, then today's suffering will also pass. If everything transforms, new opportunities will come. Don't miss the chance to be open to what is still to come. Many believe they need something or someone to be happy, but when we realize that true peace doesn't come from the outside, but from within, we see that there is nothing, once it leaves, that can destroy us. If your happiness depends on external things, you will always live in fear. But if it comes from your own strength, then nothing can take it away. Accepting the flow of life doesn't mean not feeling pain. It simply means understanding that holding on to what no longer belongs only prolongs the suffering. Detachment isn't coldness. It's not about having no feelings. It's maturity. It's the understanding that some things need to leave so that others can arrive. So ask yourself, what are you holding on to that you should have already let go of? What unnecessary weight are you still carrying? What would happen if you decided right now to move forward without fear? Maybe you'll find that you haven't lost. You've just gained freedom. Your next step is all that matters. Every passing moment becomes part of the past. Every choice you make, no matter how small it seems, defines the path ahead. What matters isn't what happened yesterday or the uncertainties of tomorrow, but what you do now. Your next step is what shapes your life, and this decision is in your hands. Many people freeze because of the weight of what's already happened. They stay stuck in mistakes, hurts, and regrets. They look back and ask, what if I had done things differently? As if that question could change anything. But the past can't be rewritten. It's already gone. What's still open is what you'll do with the time that's left. Others live worried about a future that hasn't come yet, afraid of what might go wrong, of what might fail, of how things might not turn out as they expect. And while they worry about scenarios that don't even exist, they fail to act in the only moment they truly have, the present. Stoicism teaches that now is the only thing we have real control over. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest emperors in history, wrote, "Do not live as if you have 1,000 years ahead of you. Fate is but a blink of an eye. So do what needs to be done now. Tomorrow is not promised, and yesterday is gone. What remains is this moment, this decision, this step." Big changes don't happen all at once. They are built in the everyday, through constant effort, and the decision to act, even when everything seems difficult. Waiting for the perfect moment to start is a mistake because that moment never comes. The time to change, to improve, to move forward is always now. Whatever situation you're facing, today there's a next step that can move you forward, no matter how small, as long as it's in the right direction. If life knocked you down, get up. If you're confused, choose a path and go. If you're scared, take a step anyway. Progress doesn't come from perfection, but from consistent action. The mind often tries to convince you that it's not worth it, that things won't change, that the effort will be in vain. But that voice is just fear. The only way to know what's possible is to move forward, one step at a time. You don't need all the answers. You don't need to see the whole path. All you need to do is decide what your next move will be and act on it. The rest will come with time. Many wait for motivation to take action, but the secret is the opposite. Action comes before motivation. By taking the first step, you break the cycle of inaction. The simple act of moving creates momentum that makes the next step easier. Time will pass either way, whether you're standing still or moving forward. The difference is that those who choose to act create their own destiny, while those who hesitate become prisoners of their circumstances. So ask yourself, what's your next step? What can you do today, right now, that will bring you closer to where you want to be? Don't think about what's already gone. Don't get lost in the anxiety of the future. The only moment that truly exists is this one, and your life won't be defined by what's behind you, but by what you decide to do from now on. Remember, challenges aren't your enemies, they're your teachers, and each one can make you wiser, stronger, and more resilient. Every obstacle you overcome shapes you. Every pain you face makes you tougher. You don't need to fear difficulties. You need to learn from them. Now go and show the world that nothing can break someone who controls themselves. But before you do, if this message resonated with you, leave a like so more people can hear this and get stronger too. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep receiving reflections that will help you grow even more. And if you watched this far, I want to know. Comment till the end in the comments. That way, I'll know you're someone committed to your own growth, someone who doesn't just listen, but applies wisdom every day. Now go ahead. Your next step is what really matters. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.